The Morpheus Tower by M. L. Roberts. Read by Redd Horrocks. Remember, there are fates worse than death. Headmaster Darius stared into Morwenna's hazel eyes. Yes, Headmaster, I am aware. He's trying to frighten me, she thought, and he's doing a right proper job of it, but I won't let him. She had completed her first year at the academy, but did not like it there, and planned to leave as soon as possible. The only way out would be to sign a contract releasing her at the end of her final year. Are you sure? Headmaster Darius, a skilled illusionist, took pleasure in tormenting his students. Morwenna nodded. She raised her chin and met his menacing glare with what she hoped was a cool gaze of her own. Besides, what will happen if I simply change my mind? Headmaster Darius did not reply. They sat in his office, located in the uppermost room of the tower, a fire burning in the hearth. The flames behind the screen flared beyond the stone walls and blazed into the room. The drapes and mullioned windows were never opened, and the room had become unbearably hot. And who told you about these fates worse than death? Many people, Morwenna lied. She knew magical contracts must not be broken. However, rule breakers never lived to tell the tale, and rule makers never pointed out the fine print. Is that so? Headmaster Darius gave her a measuring look. Morwenna tried to ignore the shadowy spiral horns now appearing atop his head, and the flames reflecting from his black eyes, but she couldn't. She fanned herself with one hand and tugged rapidly at the collar of her school blouse, pulling it in and out to create a tiny breeze. Do you think you have the skill to fight these fates worse than death? Headmaster Darius fingered the tip of his dark collar. His forehead remained free of perspiration. Shadows loomed higher and wavered on the walls. Morwenna dabbed the sweat from her brow. If she were going to reconsider, she'd better do it quickly. Headmaster Darius watched her. He ran the tip of his tongue over the edge of his upper lip, as if he were drawing a fine line in the sand and daring her to cross it. Not to worry, she thought. Even if I break the contract, I've never done anything evil. Well, really evil. Surely punishment is weighted on a scale of justice, with good deeds on one side and bad deeds on the other. The headmaster's thin lips curved up at the corners. Morwenna paused. Maybe she had better think about it a little more. What if she were put on trial, and the magistrate who passed sentence happened to be someone as unfair as Headmaster Darius? Not a chance. Thank you for warning me, Headmaster. I've thought about it a long time, you see, and my mind is made up, if you know what I mean. Rest assured, Headmaster Darius edged the contract across the desk towards her. I know exactly what you mean. A tremor of fear ran through Morwenna. Wait, I'm not of legal age. Pre-graduation age, yes, but I'm still a minor. I need a parent's permission. You do not have a parent. A guardian, then. I need a guardian's permission. You do not have a guardian. You are a ward of the court. My ward. However, I sympathize. We will produce a witness to verify your signature. The fire flared again and stung Morwenna's eyes. She squeezed them shut, and when she opened them, she saw dark spectres filling the room. Their woeful expressions, their baleful eyes, seemed to plead with her not to do it. Not only one witness, a roomful, Headmaster Darius said. Whom would you choose to be yours? None of them. I mean, I'm quite all right. I'll sign. I'll take your word for it. No witnesses needed. Morwenna picked up the long quill. How heavy it felt. It slipped from her hand and rolled across the desk to where she sat. The wood had bowed, with the lower end of the desk near Darius. The pen should have rolled toward him, not her. She snapped her fingers once. The pen appeared on her open palm. Clever. Darius reached into his cloak. He withdrew a sharp needle and placed it before her. Thank you. That's very helpful. A quick pinprick, a drop of blood, a fine nib pen. Morwenna put her left hand atop her right to keep it from trembling and wrote her name in small scroll letters. The deed was done. Do not forget, Morwenna, a magical contract sealed in blood can never be broken. Yes, Headmaster. But Morwenna did forget. 50 years passed, 100, 2. Her numerous lives beyond the crenellated walls did not turn out as expected. Morwenna stepped close to the window and looked down from the 32nd floor. Heights made her dizzy. The sight of people below, so small, so normal, going about their personal affairs, made her feel more left out than ever. She would have to be very careful when she jumped. A falling body could easily crush an innocent person. Maybe I should wait a day or two. She paused to reconsider. She had not told anyone what she planned to do, nor had she left a note. There had been no time, and besides, what would she say? I'm leaving, Edwin. Goodbye forever? Her husband, Mayor Edwin Barnes, had lost his bid for re-election. He didn't even campaign, Morwenna said, her resentment spilling over as it had when she had urged him to try harder. All he had done was stare at her, as if he didn't know what she meant. Then he shrugged and made no effort. The day after election, the results showed a landslide against him, ending his career. It was not the only thing near ending, Morwenna thought wistfully. She raised her head, stood up straight and tossed her hair back. Don't be a ninny, get on with it. Yet her resolve faltered. Even before Edwin's failed re-election, he stopped noticing everything, except for his assistant campaign manager. Morwenna had suspected he might be interested in the young woman, an early midlife crisis on his part. But when she saw a text, then she was sure. She hadn't really meant to pry. She knew his password. He knew hers. She had merely peeked at his recent messages and found 53 of them, all from the same woman, flagged and filed in a special mailbox. I should not have looked, Morwenna said savagely. She shoved the chair against the wall. The two legs rose a few inches off the floor and clunked back down. Instead of hurling herself out of the window, she sat on the chair. She could have been a professor at the academy, but those prospects had disappeared when she signed the contract, granting her freedom at a very heavy price. How wonderful those happy, carefree days had been. Morwenna brightened at the thought. Then, as always happened when she remembered her tweens, the haughty image of Serena Oxblood morphed in front of her. Morwenna closed her eyes, as if to wipe the memory away. But now all she could think of was Serena. Whatever happened to her? Curious, Morwenna went to the bookshelf to find her school album. It was not at eye level. She felt along the topmost shelf. Nothing there but dust. Morwenna brushed her hands together. At the bottom of the bookcase, a stack of long books lay piled horizontally. There it is. She pulled the school album free from the tomes on top of it. It had been there so long the dust now formed a neat rectangular clear space. The title, Yearbook, Class of 1720, stood out in large gold print. She turned the pages slowly and carefully. Here was Miss Feingold, botany teacher, and there was Mr. Chenoweth, economics. On the next page, in the musty tower library, Mr. Darius sat at his desk, staring into the camera. He had not yet been promoted to headmaster, but was the school librarian. His hands were folded in front of him, and behind him stood a girl who looked like Serena. Or was it? Morwenna could not be sure. She had not crossed paths with Serena in upper division, going out of her way to avoid her scathing remarks. Morwenna peered closer. Yes, it was Serena, but she did not look the same. Her hair, which had been dark pink, was shiny blue-black. Her eyes were dark, her face pale, as if all the blood had been drained. Strange, she thought, turning the page to the class pictures. There, under Serena's name, it said, "Girl most likely to become a..." A blank space had been left. The typesetter must have removed what had been there and forgot to replace it. Morwenna swiped at a small bug on the page, but it didn't move. The bug was a very small word. I need glasses, Morwenna thought, as she squinted at the mark or speck, whatever it was, and read, Moroi. Was it possible Serena had become a vampire? What of Headmaster Darius? He certainly looked like a Strigoi, a dead vampire, but she'd thought his appearance was only so much dramatic excess having to do with his role as an illusionist. I wonder, she thought back to the day she had signed the contract. She had hurried down the staircase and at the bottom stopped before a suit of armour, the faceplate down. "Hello, Sir Hugo," she had said. "Good morning," his monotone voice had echoed inside. "How did it go?" "The interview? Not well." "He threatened you, did he?" "You could say that." "And you read the fine print, I take it?" "Some of it, or not really." Sir Hugo hadn't said anything else, and so she'd left the tower. Outside, she had accidentally run into Serena, the last person she wanted to see. No way would she tell Serena how badly the interview had gone. As Morwenna recalled the whole incident, another memory came back of Serena racing across the field calling, "Devon, Devon." When he hadn't answered, she turned and called to another boy, "William, William." Both of the boys had been too far away to hear Serena's voice, yet even as she had hurried after them, she never called their names more than twice. "A Moroi cannot call a person's name 3 times, Morwenna whispered. It must be a coincidence, she reasoned, as her pounding heart told her otherwise. She tried to remember if Serena's hair had been yet another colour, an unnatural colour, not ginger or red, but bright orange. She had seen the same colour recently on Edwin's phone, the small picture of his assistant. If Morwenna had not already been sitting on the bed, she would have fallen on it. Edwin was having an affair with a Moroi. Did he know? Impossible. Morwenna bolted off the bed. She paced the floor, twisting her hands together. She would have known if there was anything magical, supernatural, or in any way unusual about Edwin. There absolutely was not. It was one of the reasons she had married him. And yet, the pieces of the puzzle slowly shifted into place. The formerly focused, energetic Edwin, now morose and indifferent. The vacant look in his eyes. His complete indifference to money. All had come about in the last few months since he had met his assistant. Morwenna checked the calendar. The date when Moroi harvest their victims was April 23rd, and today was May 5th. It was too late. She slumped against the wall. Tonight, while people drank margaritas celebrating Cinco de Mayo, she would be mourning someone as good as dead, or worse. Stunned, Morwenna staggered to the bed and fell on it. The election, the lack of consideration, none of it was his fault, she said into the pillow. Serena bewitched him. Morwenna lifted her head as another memory bubbled to the surface. Could she still save him? At the turn of the century, St. George's Day had been changed to May 5th. The Gregorian calendar had been used for centuries, but every century the dates drifted one day apart, making St. George's Day now on May 6th, the eve, the night when the Strigoi, the Moroi, and their horrible counterparts, the Strigelli witches, would seize the unwary, was tonight, May 5th. Morwenna ran to the kitchen and searched the cabinets for weapons, garlic, millet, a knife. She pulled off her tea and turned it inside out. She did not expect to be caught lying down, but if she were unconscious and helpless, her inside-out clothes might fool a vampire lurking nearby. She threw the chair aside and ran to the window. The chair crashed through the wall and into the next flat. The noise startled her. She stopped, stared, and shook her head. Then she jumped onto the ledge and leapt. Her vision blurred, her thoughts fragmented. Echoes of the past surged through her mind, and with them Serena's mocking voice. Morwenna is going to be sick. She's afraid of heights. Do you need a bag so you won't vomit on yourself? She will never be one of us. Never be one of us. Never be. Amid the haze of memory, one solid thought formed. I am not one of them. Wings were not something given or taken away because of violating an agreement. She had not needed someone to bestow them on her. They were inside, waiting to be used, waiting to be summoned. But how? Fear and love. Fear and love. They had to work at the same time. Morwenna felt wrenching pain, sharp quills tearing through her skin. The torture was unbearable. She screamed. Later, those on the ground who witnessed an object falling would give different versions. Cinders drifting from the sky, an eerie light reflecting from billboards. But not one of them saw a raven whose feathers grew in mid-flight. The one constant came from those who tried to capture the image with their phones. They all reported burnt lenses. Morwenna soared past buildings, over rooftops and out of the city, to where houses were set farther apart and lawns were unfenced and overgrown. Gliding over treetops, she saw small objects at a great distance and in great detail. Where could Serena have taken him? Not one of us. Morwenna is not one of us. Then who am I? Her eyes blazed red. Darius had never told her where she came from. He forbade her to go to the Tower Library. Once, when she stormed into his office, angry and crying over an unfair bad mark, he had hastily shoved a notebook over a sealed folder, stamped across the top, to be destroyed, and underneath a frayed yellow label, daughter of the Morrigan. Daughter of the Morrigan, goddess of war and death, goddess of fate. He knew, and he hid it from her. He scoffed at her attempts at magic, called them feeble and unworthy. He knew. Morwenna's aura glowed red, then white, and slowly settled into deepest black. Your fate is sealed, Headmaster. But first I must find Edwin and Serena. The sun lowered near the horizon. The sky faded to purple. Morwenna followed the highway and saw more trees, a winding road, and there in the distance, a lone car heading east, its lights casting not the solid V-shaped white beam, but a murky, vaporous hue invisible to normal eyes. Morwenna flew lower, trailing the car. In the back seat, a man's head lolled to the side. She could not see the driver. The raven shrieked, "Serena!" Far off the road, a man in a field looked up, shielded his eyes, and watched a moment. When he turned, he fell into a ditch that had not been there a moment before. Better a twisted ankle, Morwenna thought, than a fiery raven he could not explain. A louder shriek rent the air. "Serena!" Then another, calling her 3 times. "I know you." The car swerved. Its side wheels lifted off the asphalt and resettled. It sped faster. Morwenna alit 100 feet in front of it. The tires squealed. The car slid and stopped. The driver got out and stared at the looming shadow surrounded by fire. "You finally figured it out," Serena said in the familiar, mocking voice. "What do you intend to do about it?" "I want nothing from you," Morwenna's voice echoed. "Let Edwin go and I will release you." "Release me?" Serena shook her head. "He was only a decoy. He served his purpose." "You did this to get at you, yes. But why?" "You were in the way. You were his favorite." Serena paused. "The headmaster, you fool." "But he hated me and I detested him." "Yes, but I'm his daughter. The attention he showered on you should have been mine." "Serena, he did nothing but berate me, demean me, belittle my every attempt at magic. It was to drive you harder, to get more from you. You were his favored one." "I've had a horrible life. I don't know why, until I met Edwin." "What did you expect? You broke your contract the day you signed it." Morwenna gaped at her. "Did you not read the fine print?" "Yes." "You're lying, the same way you did then. The fine print, the secret clause, were different for all of us. Yours said that if you lied to the first person you met, you would break the contract." "But I told the truth. I met Sir Hugo, a ghost, not a person, although he still thinks of himself that way." Serena laughed once. "Sir Hugo tried to intervene. He was one of the spectres in the room, a possible witness to the signing, or would have been. He wanted to be the first you met because he knew you would tell him the truth. But I was the first real person you met. I asked you the same question Sir Hugo did, and you answered the opposite way. You told him the truth, but not to me." "I never knew," Morwenna said in a small voice. "He's suffered for it too. It's not easy to torture a ghost, but there are ways. He's locked in the tower now." "Sir Hugo," Morwenna ran her hand through her hair. "Well, don't feel too badly about it, or him. I broke my contract as well. I couldn't see the fine print either." Serena shrugged. "It does not matter now, does it? It's over. I'll tear Edwin apart and—" Morwenna's aura blistered the air around both of them. "Yes, well, I supposed in the end we would kill each other." Serena relented. "Maybe that would be best." Morwenna, now a more normal size amid her fiery aura, saw through the car to where Edwin lay on the floor in a sad, rumpled heap. Poor Edwin. Poor, stupid Edwin. Do you know what he talked about? You. Always you. My darkest arts were just not good enough to bring him around. He even called me by your name. How insulting." "He did?" Morwenna's red aura dimmed to pale amber. "I'll take him home and let you go. I mean, let bygones be bygones. How is that, Serena?" Before Morwenna's eyes, Serena shrank. She became old and shriveled, her bright orange hair wispy and shredded. "You can come with us." "Take me home?" Serena rasped. "Yes." "You trust me?" "No. If you do, you're a bigger fool than I thought. But you won't try anything. I have millet in my pocket. She remembered the burnt grain scattering as she flew. Or I did. Anyway, just for a bit of care, shall we say, maybe there's a halfway house for vampires? Serena breathed deeply. No, I don't need anything from you. I'll go my own way. As you wish. Morwenna waited till Serena's diminishing form vanished amongst the trees, sparing her any more indignity. Then she took Edwin home. It was not easy breaking the news about the re-election, especially since he did not remember being mayor, but with her care, he recovered. Morwenna closed the bedroom door where Edwin lay sleeping. She went to the east window and stared in the direction of Morpheus Tower. Her eyes narrowed, her mouth set in grim line. I will find the headmaster. Wherever he is, I will find him.